I'll go out on a limb and try to just mind the Lord. And I'm going to try to do that this morning. And my daughter, I'm going to ask Hannah, if you all would get that song ready. When folks get up here and sing, they really are concerned whether or not they do a good job. And if you're a Grinstead, and I be one and she be one, we, especially these two right here, we're hard on ourselves. But she's been singing a song around the house, and I asked her to sing it this morning, and she said, "Dad, my throat's not good." And I said, "Well, I understand that." But I would just ask you, sometimes singers don't mean it when they say, "Don't listen to my voice, listen to the words." And I'm not making up excuses, but I still think she should sing this song. And if for no one else, then for me. And so you all pray for her as she sings. And I would encourage you to listen to these words.
Hard to see, much beyond myself and where you're leading me. Dark skies as I lie awake in silence, once again I find my mind. So till a new day finally comes, I'll think on all the mighty things you've done, and I will sing songs in the night, while in a time of so little light, I'll recall your goodness, your faithfulness, and the great things in my life. These will be my songs in the night. Brings me to my knees, I will pour out my heart to you, run into your word, for your promises are true. And even though it doesn't feel that you're close, I'll trust you with me still. And I will sing songs in the night, while in a time of so little light, I'll recall your goodness, your faithfulness, and the great things in my life. These will be my songs in the night. This will be my song of so little light. I'll recall your goodness, your faithfulness, and the great things in my life. These will be my songs in the
I ask if you would please open up your Bibles this morning to the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter number 11. I originally told you gentlemen to go to verse 28, but I think I'm going to start with verse number 20. Matthew chapter 11, verse 20. I would ask you to stand in reverence to the Word of God. Then began he, speaking of Christ, then began he to upbraid the cities wherein most of his mighty works were done, because they repented not. Woe unto thee, Chorazin! Woe unto thee, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works which were done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon at the day of judgment than for you. And thou, Capernaum, which art exalted unto heaven, shalt be brought down to hell. For if the mighty works which have been done in thee had been done in Sodom, it would have remained unto this day. But I say unto you that it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom in the day of judgment than for thee. At that time Jesus answered and said, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them unto babes. Even so, Father, for so it seemed good in thy sight. All things are delivered unto me of my Father, and no man knoweth the Son but the Father. Neither knoweth any man the Father save the Son, and he to whomsoever the Son will reveal him. Verse 28, Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Father, we come to you this morning, and I thank you for the songs that have been sung. Lord, everyone from the choir to the final solo that we had, I thank you for the songs. And I pray, God, that you would bless each of them who sang this morning. I pray you'll bless their faithfulness. But now, God, we pray that you would also bless the reading and the preaching of your word. Lord, I confess to you that if you do not put in my mouth the words that need to be said, that I will probably more likely fail you if I do this without you. So I'm asking you, Father, please put in my mouth and in my heart the words that you want said. And please speak to the heart of that person that is in need of salvation, or that Christian, Father, who is in need of rest. In the name of Jesus and for His sake I pray, amen. And you may be seated. Last Sunday morning we preached what Jesus preached. If you remember, we preached that message, Repent ye, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Well, today I want us to look at another place where Jesus preached. We see in verses 20 through 27, what Jesus is doing there is He is confronting entire cities. He's speaking to them, and He's saying to these cities, if you had, or if these other cities like Tyre and Sidon who had been destroyed, and Sodom and Gomorrah which had been destroyed and consumed by fire because of the judgment of God, He's saying to these cities, He's saying, now, what you need to understand, Capernaum, and what you need to understand, Chorazin, you need to understand this also, Bethsaida. You need to understand that if I had worked in those cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and Tyre and Sidon, if I had done the same kind of works in those cities, they would have repented and got right. He is bringing an indictment to these cities. He's saying to them, He's telling them, the great judgment is going to be worse on you because I've done greater works in your city. In other words, He's saying, I've healed more people in your city limits. I've saved more people in your city limits. I've worked more miracles in your city limits than I did in Sodom and Gomorrah, than I did in Tyre and Sidon. And so, to whom much is given, much is required. For if you have great understanding, if you've seen the workings and the movings of God, then you have a greater accountability of what you're going to do with Jesus Christ. May I say it to you this way, a man that has experienced the goodness of God in the realm of finances, he is going to have to give a greater account than the poor man. Now, will the poor man give an account for his soul? Oh, yes, he will. But the man that has experienced the mercies of God and the goodness of God and the outpouring of God's riches upon his life, and when he gets up each day and he looks around and says, my goodness, look at all that I have, at the judgment that man had better be right with Jesus. You say more than the poor man? I dare say by this example, yes, more than the poor man. The poor man could quite possibly get up in his shack and get up to his hungry belly. Are you listening? And he's got this growling in his stomach, and he might quite possibly stir up this thought, where is God? I'm in a shack and I'm hungry. And it's no cause of my own. The person there in the land of Africa, the person there in parts of some other third world countries, and they get up and it's not that they won't go out and get a job. There is not a job to go get. It's not that they won't go out and get the food, but it's that there has been a dearth, there has been a famine, or there has been a water shortage, and so there is no food. That man might quite possibly be able to get up one morning and say, oh, where is this good God? But not the man of Forsyth County. You say, why do you hit Forsyth County? Because I live here. Because I'm a part of Forsyth County. We here in Forsyth County, where we have food banks and where we have all of these things going on, there is an abundance around us. Oh yes, times are hard in Forsyth County, but our idea of a hard time is, oh no, I'm not going to get to go buy the new Mercedes. I'm going to have to drive this one more year. Oh, come on, smile at me, gang. That man or that woman that gets up and they say, oh my, look, yes, sales are down, but you know what? I can still go buy a loaf of bread. I can still go buy milk. I can still pretty well. And here's the thing, guess what? And I thank God for this. I ate at Applebee's the other night, and you know what? Applebee's isn't empty. Anybody listening to me? You say, what are you saying, preacher? I'm saying those people, Christ right here is saying, when you've experienced the workings of God, judgment is going to be more stern for you than for those who've not experienced all the goodness that you've experienced. Can I confess to you all this morning, the day that I accepted Jesus as my Savior? There's two things that I knew very strongly. One, it was that God was knocking on my heart's door for the last time. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that because you say, how can you say that? Because I rejected Him when I was a boy. He knocked when I was a boy and I rejected Him. He knocked when I was a little bit older, say around 12, and I rejected Him. He knocked when I was in my teens and I rejected Him. And I knew that if I didn't answer Him in this I was 20 years old, if I didn't answer Him as a young man, I knew for me, He was knocking for the last time. But the other thing, friend, that I also knew, are you hearing me this morning? I also knew that hell was going to be hotter for me. I knew that hell would be worse for me. You say, well, preacher, what had you done? Well, at that time in my life, to be honest with you, at the age of 20, I had not done a lot of things. I had never drunk alcohol. I had never, things that people say, oh, look at that old drunkard over there. I wasn't a drunkard. I wasn't that type of person. There's a lot of things I had not done. But you want to know what I had done? I had sat under the goodness of God for 20 years of my life. I'd never wanted for anything. I always had what I needed and most of what I want. The goodness of God. I was in great condition. I had a great health in those days, and I was financially fine. I was physically fine. I was physically fit, if you please. But the other thing, friend, is I had sat in church Sunday after Sunday, after Sunday after Sunday, after Sunday after Sunday, and had the grace of God extended to me and rejected it Sunday after Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. Let me say this to you, and I am your friend. I might be one of the best friends you got right now. If you're sitting here this morning and you have heard the gospel preached, you'll give an account for that. And you'll give an account for every time you've heard it preached. If there is somebody in your circle of friends, whomever they may be, if you've got may I say it to you in love, if you've got a Bible thumper in your circle of friends, you say, what do you mean by a Bible thumper? Well, I'm just somebody who believes the Bible and lives by the Bible. If you've got a coworker and they're the one that kind of makes you uneasy, or if you've got a friend that kind of makes you uneasy because they keep trying to bring up the Bible to you and you keep trying to avoid the conversations. Are you hearing me this morning? You know what you're experiencing? You're experiencing the grace of God. If you've got a grandparent, or if you've got a parent, or if you've got a sibling, or if you've got a niece or a nephew or an extended relative, and they call you up occasionally and say, I just want you to know I'm praying for you. If they send those notes or those little cards and say, I'm praying for you. If they invite you to the potluck supper at church every time they turn around, if you're here today because you finally gave in to somebody nagging you to come to church, do you realize that every time they've nagged you and every time they've did what they've did, that was God extending grace and mercy to you? And if you die in your sin and have rejected Jesus Christ as your Savior, oh, no. I understand, ma'am. I understand you're not living under a bridge downtown because you've got a drug addiction. I understand that. But may I say it to you, friend, if that man or woman that's living under the bridge down in Atlanta has not had the grace of God extended to them like you have to you, they may still die in their sins and go to a devil's hell, but hell will be hotter for you. You want to know why? Because the book of Hebrews teaches that we have trampled under our feet the blood of Jesus Christ. There are people who do things out of ignorance, and there are people who do things just because I'm going to do what I want to do. Are y'all hearing me this morning? There are people who do things because they don't see that there's any other answer. There is no other answer. And then there's people who know the other answers and still do what they're going to do. Is anybody hearing me this morning? And I'm trying to be a help to you. I'm trying to preach to you a message that Jesus preached. He said it, and He could say it this morning. He could say it, and He would be right. He would be right. If Jesus Christ was standing here this morning, He could say, Forsyth County, I want you to understand, Forsyth County, I want you to understand Cumming, Georgia, I want you to understand Atlanta, Georgia. I have worked, I have moved. Some of the greatest preachers that have ever existed lived in the Atlanta, Georgia area. Some of the greatest preachers that the world knows are still in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And He could say to Atlanta, hey Atlanta, the judgment of God is going to be greater for you and worse for you than for Sodom and Gomorrah. Because they didn't have the First Baptist Church of Atlanta, or they didn't have all these mega churches that we've got around us. Is anybody here this morning? You say, preacher, why are you preaching to us this way? We're the saved guys. We're cool. We're good. You want to know why I'm preaching this way? I sat in services like this, just like this. Let me say something to you, friend. I 100% know you can sit and go to church every Sunday of your life and be playing a game. And here's when it gets dangerous, Brother Stephen. When you've started fooling yourself. When the Holy Ghost starts working on you again, and you've so fooled yourself that you're saying, well, that ain't the Holy Ghost. Anybody listening? I was almost there. I'm glad He knocked one more time. Because that is not where Christ ends this message. Christ doesn't end there. Oh yes, He brings railing accusations and He comes hard. You can't, people would say, Christ was a humble man. Oh yes, but when He preached, He laid it out there. As we would say here in the South, He shucked the corn. But He ends with this. Come. Come. What He's saying within those cities and to those cities, He's saying within them there's going to be some. Oh, well, will the entire city of Atlanta repent? Probably not, but there's going to be some that'll come. Will the entire county of Forsyth repent? Probably not, but there will be some that come. Y'all still with me? Will everybody in Cumming, Georgia get saved and go to heaven? The odds are no, but there will be some. And so when He's finished making those railing accusations, when He accuses them, when He brings this indictment, after He's finished, He says, now, here's what I want to close with. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden. What He's saying is, friend, those of you that are tired and you're tired of trying to keep up with the Joneses and you're done, you labor. That's when He's talking about that laboring. You are laboring and you are tired of, anybody with me this morning? You're tired of thinking that this purchase was going to make you happy, and you worked real hard and you purchased it and it didn't bring any happiness to your soul. It brought a momentary pleasure, but it didn't bring any real genuine peace to your soul. Jesus is saying, I'm talking to you, man. I'm talking to you. Are you listening? He's saying to us, though you've got what you've wanted. I can remember when I was a teenager and it was, if I just made the football team. I made the football team. If I just be the starting fullback. I was the starting fullback. If I just did this. All these things that went through my teenage years. And then it was, if I just find the right girl. And I found the right girl. I asked her to marry me when I was 17 years old. I found the right girl. If I could just find the right job. And I found the right job. If I could just get this car. And I got the car. If I could just get this apartment. I got this apartment. Are you hearing me? By the time I was 20, I had it. But God, if I could just find some rest for my soul. tired. How you doing, Chris? Man, I'm great, man. I'll see you in a bit. We'll do lunch. I'll see you in a little bit. I'm 19 years old, and I'm talking this way to vice presidents of Sovereign Bank. I'll see you in a bit. They all had to wear suits and ties. I wore in my blue jeans and T-shirts. Made them mad, drove them nuts, but there's nothing they could do about it. Auditors would come through where I worked, my department of the bank. We were the brain center for the bank. Auditors would come through to decide whether or not my job was important, and I'd be playing cards. You'd be playing cards and an auditor would come by. Yeah, the auditor would walk by. And he's the guy that decided whether or not I got to keep my job. I'd be playing cards. What would you do? How you doing? You say, what are you saying, preacher? I was in. Get rid of me, the whole place shuts down. And the people that worked on my floor, we knew it. You went to one security guy, said, hey, here and they say, hey, how you doing, Chris? Then you went, you know what I'm talking about, Greg. You go to these doors that, you swipe your card and you walk through, and then guess what? There's another door. And you go through that. Had to go through like 3 or 4 different doors like that just to get to where I worked. Because all of the information for Sovereign Bank, which is now Bank of America, was at my disposal. You know what I was doing? I'm good, I'm cool, I'm good, I'm cool. I'm good, I'm cool. I'm good, I'm cool. Until I was alone. The reason I played on 3 softball teams was because I couldn't stand being alone. The reason I ran around all night long, there were nights, gang, I know I'm telling on myself, there was nights that I stayed up all night long and would roll into work. I had to be at work around 8 o'clock in the morning, and I hadn't slept a wink. I had been up all night long. Doing what? What I wanted to do, going where I wanted to go. It was nothing for me to hop in my car and drive. Why? Because I wanted to. What were you trying to do? I was trying to get some peace. And I thought I might find it over here. Jesus is saying, again, judgment's coming. But those of you that are tired of laboring, come. You're tired of looking and not finding, and you're wore out. Your soul's wore out. Come. Come. That young lady sitting there, she finds out the way I felt when we were growing up together and me running around crazy. I was driving her crazy and I was driving my parents crazy. Why the woman stayed with me, I have no idea. I wouldn't have. She's crazier than me. You say, what's your point? She didn't know. Did you know? She didn't know. Nobody knew. Mom didn't know. Dad didn't know. Nobody knew. Nobody knew what was going on inside of me, really. Nobody knew. Come. You're tired of laboring and still not having any rest for your soul. Won't you come? Then he goes on to say, come, I'm almost done. Hang in here. Oh, we're almost done. We're still doing good. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden. You know what heavy laden alludes to? If you look it up in the Greek, you'll find out that this word is alluding to those that have gotten heavy with religion. He's making a plea to those in the crowds in those cities that had had their feel of the Pharisees and the Sadducees and had had their feel of Judaism, and they had even there are those that will labor and try to find peace, and they'll do everything they can by purchases, and then there's those that will become heavy laden because they've tried to find peace in this religious circle and that religious circle and that religious circle. And at that time I was raised Baptist, but let me say it to you this way. If you're here this morning and you was raised Catholic, you got a Baptist right here that understands you. You say, what do you mean? Because let me share something with you. Baptists are just like the Catholics in some areas. You say, you're being mean towards the Catholics? No, I'm talking about Baptists. I'm being mean towards the Baptists. You say, no, what do you mean? There is a religiousness about being Baptist. The Catholics have their rituals, we've got ours. Now, come on, gang. I've been to Catholic weddings. I know stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. It's like spiritual aerobics. Stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. We do the same thing here, but ours is different. Raise your hands, put them down. Raise your hands, put them down. Amen. We'll even sing a song this morning that in the song, lift up your hands. Am I right? Anybody listening to me? And I know, Miss Dana, I know. I think you know too, because you grew up the way I grew up. That can get real heavy. You want to know why I moved out of my house when I was 18 years old and took off and took that job at the bank? It was because I wasn't being a rebel. I was just tired. You want to know why, Daniel? I'd done everything the Baptists told me to do. I'd memorized every verse they told me to memorize in Sunday school. Are y'all listening to me? I went to the altar when they said come. Anybody hearing me? I prayed and I went on visitation. I did everything that a Baptist is supposed to do. I got baptized. I did everything a Baptist was supposed to do. And you want to know where I was when I was finished doing all of that stuff? I was heavy laden. God got real heavy. I was tired of carrying around God. I hope I'm not being too personal. We're talking about me and the Lord, not you. Are we? Or are we talking about you? It doesn't matter, Baptist, Pentecostal, Presbyterian, Methodist, Catholic, Buddhist, Muslim. It doesn't matter. Religion gets heavy. That's the reason Jesus said, come unto me, you that labor. He's appealing to those that are doing everything they can to get that next thing that's going to satisfy. And he's saying, well, you're tired, aren't you? Aren't you tired of that? Then he goes on to say, but you that are heavy laden. That's why he goes from those that labor and are heavy laden. He is saying, now let me appeal to those of you that you're not guilty of pursuing that. But here's what you've done. You've tried to be religious. And it's gotten heavy for you. You know what he says to them both? Come. Come where? Come to me. Come to me. The gladdest day of my life was the day that I could care less if anybody thought I was a Baptist. I used to get in arguments about it. I'm a Baptist. What are you? You're a Pentecostal. I know more than you do. Well, I'm a Baptist. What are you? You're a Methodist. Well, I know more than you do. What are you? You're a Catholic. You say, why do you say that? Because I've had folks, and I know y'all were raised Catholic, and I've had folks that when they told me that, they said I'm a Catholic, and they expected me to go, and I just went, good. But do you know Jesus? And I found out that many of them do. You say, well, what's your point, preacher? When you get good and tired, Jesus is here saying, come. And he doesn't say, Pastor Grinstead will give you rest. He doesn't say, the Baptist will give you rest. And he doesn't say, whatever will give you rest. He says, come to me, and I will give you rest. Nathaniel Hawthorne, some of y'all know who he is? One of the great American writers. I probably won't get it just right, Greg, but he wrote this statement. It's one of his famous statements. It's, she did not know the weight until she had the freedom. I didn't know how heavy sin was until I experienced the deliverance. I didn't know how heavy faking it, I'm going to say it that way. I didn't know how heavy faking it had become until I experienced the freedom.
Yes.
I cannot be enough emotional. I'm not trying to, you understand what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be under emotional. I'm not faking it up here to be over emotional. I cannot be emotional enough to express to you the way it was the day I got good and tired and I accepted Jesus as my Savior. I legitimately was lighter. I thought I could fly away. I did not know that sin was so heavy. And I didn't know that faking it had gotten so heavy. And you know, what did you do, preacher? You know what I did? I looked around the church and I said, I just don't care. Don't care what anybody thinks anymore. And I'm going to go up there and I'm going to ask Jesus to fix me. I'm going to quit going to the back. And I meant it. When I got on that altar, here was my spirit. And Lord knows I'm telling the truth. If they had told me one more thing to be a good Baptist, I would have said, I'm sorry, but I'm not doing that. I got on my knees that day, and my spirit was, Lord, if they expect me to do anything else, if something is said to me, you got to do this or you got to do that, I'm telling you, Lord, I cannot do it. And I just can't. And I'm so glad that it wasn't a theologian that met me there, and I'm so glad it wasn't some high and mighty man that met me there. You know who it was? A man who ran a muffler shop. Randy Honaker owned a muffler shop in our town. The muffler man got down beside me and he said, you know what you need to do? Just ask Jesus to save you. And I did. He's telling the truth. If you'll come to him, he'll give you rest. That don't mean you can quit your job. You got to go to work Monday. I found that out. But your soul won't be heavy. And if it ever gets heavy again, the smart people run back to Jesus. Yeah, that's why we hit this altar. Because it just got too heavy. There's some of you here this morning that you need to come and be delivered from sin and you need salvation. I think in a crowd this size, there's probably somebody. I don't know though. But then there's some here this morning, you're a Christian and you've just been trying to carry it all again. You need to let it go. You need to give it to Christ. But everybody here needs to come to Jesus. Would you stand? Father, I ask that you will work on hearts this morning. I pray, Father, that you'll have your way. I'm sure that other preachers would have done better. But Lord, I'm trusting that I'm just trusting you to work on the heart of the lost here today. I'm trusting you to work on the soul of the heavy here today. And I just pray that they will come to you. In the name of Jesus, I pray. We have some on the altar already, but before you lift your heads, I'm going to ask Brother Lee Pratt, if you would come and stand, and Brother Greg, if you would not mind standing again. Brother Jimmy, if you would come. Krista, if you would come. Miss Rebecca, if you would come. Miss Dana, if you would come. Dana Nation, if you would come. I do it this way because I think it's important to know that there is somebody here that will take the Bible and show you. We've got men over here to my right, ladies to my left. And they'll take the Bible so that you can take God at His word. If you are here, this invitation, if you are here, you labor and you are heavy laden, the invitation is come and Jesus will give you rest. Will you come as we play softly? And Brother Stephen sings for us. Heads are bowed, eyes are closed. Brother Stephen sings.